On the wall of my study at home is the movie poster of Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1986. The author, Larry McMurtry, said he set out to write the great anti-Western story, but many say he actually wrote one of the best, if not the best, Western portrayals of people and ideals. The two main characters, Augustus McCrae and Woodrow Call, are retired Texas Rangers who decide to leave Lonesome Dove, Texas, on the border of Mexico and push cattle up to Montana. Mr. McMurtry said his inspiration for Augustus and Woodrow was Don Quixote, the visionary man and the practical man. I was encouraged and relieved when I read that quote, as I've always thought I'm like both characters depending on the day and the time and the stress I'm under. Often I wish I was more like Augustus, but I am often more like Call. Augustus is visionary and hope springs eternal, and then Woodrow Call is practical and pragmatic. I wonder why I can't act on my dreams one moment and then wondering the next moment why I would. In one of the scenes, Augustus and Call ride into San Antonio to secure a cook for their cattle drive. On their way out of town, Gus stops by a creek and reflects on his life and the special moments in his past. But it's apparent that his friend Woodrow doesn't want to be reminded of his past. As the story continues and crisis then develops, Gus reminds Call that even when life gets messy, it's still to be celebrated, still to be cherished. Even though physical death is a certainty, life is a precious gift. But to Woodrow Call, there isn't much difference in what happens between life and death. Nothing to cherish, only to maintain, to get to another day. Gus says to his friend, "My God, Woodrow, you just don't get the point, do you? It ain't dying I'm talking about. It's living." Recently, a college newspaper offered a prize to the person who submitted the best definition of life. The entries came pouring in, hundreds more than anticipated, and by an overwhelming margin, the definitions were negative. One wrote, "Life is a joke that isn't funny." Another, "Life is the jail sentence we get for the crime of being born." And another, "Life is a disease for which there is only one cure, death." Ted Turner, who is wealthy, very wealthy, has let us know what he believes. "Life is a B-grade movie," he said. "You don't want to leave in the middle, but you don't ever want to see it again." One of the young women who visited the house with the red door in Breckenridge, the ministry that Charlotte and I founded back in 2000, it was the Ministry for Postmodern Young Adults. She told me when I asked her name that her name was Lost. She wasn't kidding. I wasn't surprised, but I was saddened. Many of the young people who we reached out to had come from financially affluent families who had offered everything money could buy, but who had ironically given very little of what was most precious, time, the time for living. In the narrative of the gospel story today, did you notice that the disciples and then the sisters, Martha and Mary, are having trouble imagining any possibilities in the midst of the moment? They seem lost. Their faith, when they most needed it, isn't enough in the midst of the pinch point between what they wished for and what is. They had become preoccupied with problems and missing the possibility of what would be discovered in faith, of what life could be. John has been reminding us these past 3 weeks about a living, growing faith in the narratives that we have looked at. The story of Nicodemus, the woman at the well, a formerly blind man. Jesus has relied on images of birth, insight, and light to help him emphasize it's not death as the motivator, but life. We will all have to go through some sobering, traumatic events in life. We will all experience some suffering to some degree, but it isn't about death. Jesus is talking to us about life and how our faith can prepare us for when we go through such chapters to new life. No matter how long it has been since you heard the Holy Spirit calling out to you, it's not too late, this gospel tells us. No matter what the scribes of this culture are selling as the truth about you and your circumstances, John's narrative reminds us Jesus is here for you. No matter how many are gathered to mourn your demise, Jesus will arrive in time. And like long ago, as Jesus wept for his friend, Jesus extends compassion to you, often through the lives of others who have begun to take the time to live as the hands, the heart, and the face of Jesus. Wherever you are, whatever has happened to you, no matter how long you've been in the grave of your circumstance. Because it's not death Jesus is talking about, it's living. So rise up and live.